Right now on the National Weather Desk, Nicole makes landfall.
Assessing damage, checking out the power lines as well. That is another concern.
Up and down Florida's coast, we have you covered.
Safest if you just stay home right now because the roads are not very safe.
We'll also see how people still in Nicole's path are getting ready for its arrival.
They're keeping an eye on beach erosion and making sure dunes are structurally sound.
Winter storms, heavy snow falls in the Rockies and Plains. Good news for the snowpack, but tough on visibility.
We've got this much snow, I can hardly see 10 feet in front of me.
Plus, tips to help you avoid a potentially deadly collision with a deer.
From our nation's capital, this is a special edition of the National Weather Desk. Tracking Nicole.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Veronica Johnson. Nicole made landfall overnight just south of Vero Beach, Florida as a Category 1 hurricane, and it has since been downgraded to a tropical storm. The good news? So far, there have been no major reports of any damage or flooding. Water levels are high in some places. Right now, the winds appear to be the biggest issue. They are still sustained just around 60 miles per hour. And even before Nicole made landfall, its power took a toll on at least one building. This is from Daytona Beach shores, which took a hit from Hurricane Ian back in September. Those weakened buildings, they were collapsing yesterday afternoon with the storm surge and that rain that pounded the area. So here is the latest on the storm. A state of emergency has been declared in at least 45 of Florida's 67 counties. More than 175 customers in Florida now without power. Several airports, including West Palm Beach, Daytona Beach, and Orlando, are closed. Mandatory evacuations were posted for many coastal communities, including former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago club. Well, tornado watches have now been posted until 1 p.m. for portions of northeastern Florida and southeastern Georgia. In fact, if you take a look at the map here, I can show you exactly where. Jacksonville up toward Waycross and Brunswick in Georgia, and further south, just shy of Daytona Beach. And as that center of Nicole continues to weaken over land and head to the west, I do think we're going to see that tornado watch extended to include more western counties right across northern Florida. So here's the latest track. We'll watch it hug the coast, the Gulf Coast, and then maybe make a second landfall for the U.S. Again, quite unusual for this late in the season, but another landfall possible around Appalachia Bay. And then it's on further to the north and the northeast, pulling right into areas of the western Carolinas. And these are the areas, the mountainous areas, that could see probably the most rainfall, maybe upwards 2 inches or so of rainfall. And then on up into areas of D.C., Maryland, Virginia, and eventually New England. In fact, when you look at some of the rainfall, not the biggest issue compared to Ian. We'll see rainfall amounts on the order of 2 to 3 inches for areas of the southeast. So watch it move into areas of the Carolinas and eventually up into New England for Saturday. So Nicole here impacting so much of the East Coast, including New England. We've got team coverage this morning as we track Nicole in Florida. We have reporters all along the Florida coast. They're covering the impact from Nicole, from the strong winds to the heavy rain, even the flooding. We start with the conditions, what they look like overnight shortly before Nicole made landfall.
You can see the wind and the rain is definitely starting to pick up. Just take a look at these waves behind me. They are crashing into the pier with such force. I've personally never seen anything like this. And a lot of people are coming out just to see what these winds are doing to the waters and just to this area, just trying to see that storm. Now, further off in the distance, you can't really see it because there's not a lot of light over there, but one of those piers came crashing down into the water. The light pole directly in front of me also shaking every once in a while. It's a little nerve-wracking out here right now, but like I said, a lot of people are coming out to Sandsprit Park just to see what it's like out here because they want to see what a hurricane looks like. And we spoke to some people that are out-of-towners and had just moved here to Florida, and that makes up a lot of the residents in this area now. Like we mentioned earlier, we have a lot of people that came here from New York and other parts of the country, and this might be their first hurricane, so just to keep in mind, it's safest if you just stay home right now because the roads are not very safe.
This flooding here on Sewell's Point Road can be seen in both residential neighborhoods and parking lots for businesses. For example, I'm in a turn-in lane for a parking lot, and you can see this water comes all the way up past my feet. So it's all the way up here on my boots. My feet are submerged in water. And I want you to take a look just across the road over there at the Landing neighborhood. You can see the turn into that neighborhood is completely flooded with water, and over there is just a little deeper than what I'm standing in right now. And even if you take a look, that flooding continues all through the grass and all the way down the road. I'm Stephanie Valderrama here in Fort Pierce at the Melody Lane Fishing Pier, and these are the conditions that we're seeing. Really just waves crashing into the pier. Water is really rough at this hour. If we could turn all the way to the left now, I'm going to show you this bridge. It's probably going to be hard to see because it is a little far, but you might be able to make out some cars crossing over the bridge. Now, that bridge leads into one of the barrier islands here, which is Hutchinson Island. That bridge was closed overnight. It seems like they just reopened it, letting people across so they can finally head back to the barrier islands, get a better look to see any of the damage left behind by Hurricane Nicole. We are hearing from the local sheriff's office that they are driving by, assessing damage, checking out the power lines as well. That is another concern, and any of the street lights that they are anticipating might be out. Again, they're doing all of those assessments now that we have daylight.
Behind me is Acacia Road here in Vero Beach that has some extensive flooding a couple inches up off the ground. But it's not just this. If you take a look behind me, it actually goes for what appears to be a couple of football fields into that tree line with the Merrill P. Barber Bridge in the backdrop. This flooding continues to push on towards us here and has the potential to go up on these banks here, which could cause a problem for the neighboring park and baseball field here. The issues from Nicole still coming, even though Nicole appears to have already bought the worst of the storm. It appears that she's just not quite done with us yet. In Vero Beach, I'm Dylan Huberman reporting.
By tomorrow afternoon, the remnants of Nicole will be in South Carolina. Preparations for its arrival already underway. Let's go now to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where Jenna Horazzo says the area is still grappling with the impact of September's severe weather.
Just 2 months ago, the Grand Strand was impacted by Hurricane Ian, damaging the Grand Strand's coastline. As for Nicole, people I spoke with are just securing outdoor items. Pawleys Island Police Chief Michael Fanning says they're keeping an eye on beach erosion and making sure dunes are structurally sound. Fanning says he's only gotten a handful of calls from concerned residents.
We've had a few phone calls about whether or not they should move their vehicles. We had about 60 cars or so that got heavily damaged during Hurricane Ian that had to get towed off the island. So, we regularly on our social media, we try to remind people not to drive through the flooded roads.
Fanning says crews in Pawleys Island are still working to clean up debris from Ian. Here you can see docks still floating out in the creek.
A lot of those wood docks floated up and the wind just dislodged them, and some of them, the heavier ones, they just landed right in the middle of the creek. The ones with the gazebos on them, some of them are out there and they're overturned now, and so that's our next project after cleaning up everything on the beach right now.
The U.S. Geological Survey predicts dunes in South Carolina will again see impacts from Hurricane Nicole. They forecast 55% of South Carolina's dunes are expected to face some level of erosion and predict around 15% of dunes to be overwashed.
Of all the places you want to ride out a storm, the last place you might think to stay is on a boat just as Nicole arrives. But that's exactly what one Florida family decided to do.
You'd be amazed how stable this boat is. It's not rocking, it's not moving around. They've got it solidly tied down. And Suzanne, I guess a lot of people might be wondering, well, gee, is it safe to be out here on a sailboat in a marina during a hurricane?
I think right now, I think it is. We've taken a lot of precautions and we feel pretty prepared. I mean, we're also prepared to leave if we have to, and we've talked about that and planned it out. But right now we feel safe on it, yeah.